three main pillars to creating a great ad campaign. The first thing I want to do is I want to talk about this word great, because when you're running a great ad campaign, it means that it's performing well. It's, going out to people that you really want to have as customers. And they're not always going to be great, but I'm going to teach you, hopefully, in these few minutes that we have, how to do or how to create great ad campaigns. And so the first pillar that I want to talk about is the offer, because a great offer is, there's three things. Now, when it comes to an offer, we want to make sure that we have the who we're selling to. We need to make sure, you've probably heard this before, we need to make sure that we are speaking to the right people, we're attracting the right people, that we're selling to the right people. But we need to start creating the offer around who these people are. And it's a question of not just who they are, but also what they believe. Like common sense and common knowledge tells you, oh, you need to know where they live and what age they're at, and all of these demographic pieces of information. And that's great. Like, we need to know our avatar from that point of view, but we also need to know who they are in a behavioral sense, right? What do they belief sense and a behavioral sense, and what do they resonate with? So when it comes to resonating, it's a question of, well, do they appeal to your product in a certain way, right? Resonating means, what are their problems? What are their pain points? What are the things that they're struggling with? And looking at your product, looking at your service and saying, okay, well, what are you solving, right? The only way that you can match a great offer with a great product is if there's resonance and if there's an overlap, because your product must be able to solve a problem, right? If you think about, as an example, Apple, right? Let's say specifically with iPhones, what problems do Apple solve? One is they make the product really, really simple. It's easy to use. There's less functionality than an Android. Yes, agreed. And a lot of Android folks will say, oh, Apple is shit because of that. But the point is, they've made it super simple to use and super easy to operate, which has also created a lot of reliability and a lot of stability in the system. Then also they focused on good quality, great quality, I would say. And so when you have those two things, or like Apple has, it's resonating with people who are appealing to that. Now, obviously, it's a little more expensive, and there's a whole debate about that we can go into, about pricing. But a great offer essentially must have core beliefs, and it must match the beliefs that people have, right? There are people in the world who want good quality, who want the simplicity. They don't want their phones to be complicated. They don't want to have to think about every week, oh, what are my icons on my homepage going to look like? Like, when it's simple and when it's easy, it just works. So that's what makes a great offer, right? Who they are, what do they believe, and what do they resonate with? And we're trying to find message resonance, matching to match with what they are believing and what they will understand from us. Okay, so that's the first pillar. And once you've got a great offer, the question is like, okay, how do you know if it's a great offer? Well, because people are buying it, right? When you speak to people, you're matching their beliefs. They're like, oh my God, I want that. Like, that's something interesting. So that's validation. Once you have the great offer, you need to speak to people, and you need to be able to offer them the service, or offer them the thing, and then you will find resonance. And when they resonate, they will buy. Again, pricing is another issue, but we'll talk about that maybe on another training or another day. And of course, if there's questions, post them below in the comments. I'm here to listen and here to answer them. The second pillar is testing, right? So the second pillar is testing your campaigns. Now, a campaign, obviously, we're talking about ads. So specifically, when you set up your ads, now that you have the people, right, you know who these people are, you have all of this information, you take that information and you put it into tests. Tests meaning you write your campaigns, you write your if you're on school, you're writing your about page. If you're on, you're writing ads, you're going to write multiple variations because you want to test certain things. Right? You might have an avatar, you might have a person that has multiple beliefs, that has multiple things that they resonate with. Right? I mentioned with Apple, quality and simplicity. So they might be testing campaigns where they're talking about one or the other, or both, or they start with quality and they talk about simplicity second, or simplicity first and then quality second. Like if you look at any Apple keynote, you'll see they're talking to different people at different stages of the process. Like usually they'll go into sort of a broad description of what the thing is that they're launching or product that they're launching. They'll tease, and then only do they go into the technical bits, because there are a lot of people who are very technical in the Apple ecosystem, and a lot of people are, using Apple devices from a technical point of view, developers and such, developing apps or developing software or whatever. And so, they need to cater for those people. And so they talk about those technical terms. But the second pillar about this campaign, and this applies to any campaign, right? Once you have resonance and once you know what your offer is, you want to know at what rate do people convert. So if you speak to 100 people or you're advertising and you have 100 people see the product, meaning they see the landing page, then it's like, okay, how many of those people have bought? If it's 5 people, that means your conversion rate is 5%. I can't write with my mouse at all. So 5% if 100 people are hitting your page, right? And then at what cost? If you're advertising, you're spending money. So let's say you spent $20 to get this buyer, then that's what your cost is, right? How much you've spent for the day, how much you've spent for the week, how much you spent for the month, and how many buyers did you get? Simple calculation. How much input? You spend money. How many customers did you get? That's what conversion rate is, and then that's what conversion cost is, otherwise known as cost per acquisition or CPA. Then you need to know at what value, meaning how much money did you make back, right? And the cost and the value give us something called ROAS. ROAS. ROAS, return on ad spend. So again, in that example, if you spend $100, you got one sale at 20, and let's say your product is 120, that means you made $20 profit on that one acquisition. Now that may not be enough profit, and I wouldn't recommend that you aim for that profit, $20 out of 100 spent, but that means you have a 1.2x ROAS, meaning for every $100 you spend, you get 120 back. That means you've effectively grown your money by 20%. Now, of course, if it's a product, physical product, there are other costs, there's shipping, there's all these other things. Fine. So you may not be profitable on the overall business, but in terms of ads alone, you have a ROAS of 1.2. So that's what makes a great now, to make it a great campaign, you want a high conversion rate. And so let me remove some of these things so I can use a different color. So you want a high conversion rate, you want a low cost, and you want high value, right? And I'll talk about value in a second. But these are the things that you want. So that's essentially where we're at in terms of making a great ad campaign. In order for a great ad campaign to be greater, obviously you need to increase the rate of conversion, decrease the cost of that conversion, and increase the value. So I'll talk about that in a second. So those are the 3 things to test, and your multiple tests are going to give you different rates. And once you have those 3 different rates, you compare your different tests and you say, okay, which one gave you the best conversion at the lowest cost and highest value? And sometimes you might go for a lower conversion rate with a higher value, or you might go for a lower cost and a lower conversion rate, but a high value. It really depends on where the numbers land. So that's why testing is important, because you need to know these numbers. You need to be able to track these numbers, campaign against campaign, and also these things fluctuate by day. People are doing different things on different days of the week. If your business is seasonal, different months might perform, some months might perform better than others. At the end of the day, it's like, take your ad campaign over a period of time, right, that give you statistical significance, instead of looking at, oh, you spent $20 today, you spent $100 today, you spent $1,000 today, this was your return, and then making decisions. It's always a good idea to spread that out, make it longer, so it's a week or a month or maybe 2 months, and then you decide, okay, what are you going to do with your campaign? If you're losing money, if it's not a great campaign, then obviously you need to make shifts quicker. But if you found a good campaign and it's performing great, then you make shifts and you make changes slowly, is what I would recommend. All right, let's move on to the third pillar. And so the third pillar of making a great campaign is to analyze buyer behavior. So once they are your customer, you evaluate if they are the right people. You evaluate if they love it. And how do you know if they love it? They leave reviews. And how do you know that they love it? Because they buy again, right? If you have upsells, then maybe they buy the more expensive stuff. If you have things that you're doing more regularly, repeatedly, let's say you have a subscription or you have a membership, then people are going to stay in your membership, meaning you're not going to have churn, or churn is going to be low, right? So churn rate will tell you whether people love it, whether they use it, and that they buy again and again, right? So this comes back to, and if you notice the trend, right, there's this thing of people, right? We're talking about people here, and we're talking about people in the first step, right? This is all got to do with people, is the who, right? So you match your product in the first pillar with the right people. Then once you've sold to them, you test. Well, those tests are going to tell you whether these are the right people or not. Because if they are the right people, then they'll do these certain things. They'll leave reviews and they'll buy stuff again and again. If they're not doing that, then perhaps they're not the right people, or it's not quite the right offer. And so then you go back to testing, right? Then you create new tests, you shift your product, and you make changes because you want the right people to give you good reviews and you want them to buy again. Now, why do I say all this, right? Why have I outlined this as the final step? Because surely you would know the right people in the first step. Well, no, because if you're doing research and if you haven't sold to anybody, or maybe you are selling to a few people, but you just know for some reason that these people are not the right people, this is how you know. It's not like gut feeling. It's not emotional decisions that we make in business. These are based on stats. These are based on whether people are saying good things in the reviews or not. And so now that you have, hopefully by the third pillar or by the third step, you'd have a great campaign. And you'd have the right people, they love it, and they're buying again. Now it's time to scale, right? Logically, that's what you would do, especially if you have a good return on the ad spend, you have a good ROAS, and your numbers are looking great. You need to figure out how to scale. So how do you scale? And there are only 3 ways to scale. This is known information out there. Many big businessmen have said so, and I will say this as well. You need more customers. You need the customers to buy again and again, and you need customers to be buying at a higher value, which comes back to what I said here, right? You have more of the right people buying again, and people buying at a higher value. That's it. So these are, you might say, oh, this is confusing because if customers are buying again, they could be the same customers. Well, we want them to be the same customers, right? More customers is more new customers. People buying again is those customers that you got buying a second, third, fourth, fifth time. In a subscription, it's easier to see that. They just pay monthly over and over and over again. Netflix is great for this, right? People don't cancel. People might cancel because they are not using the service, or maybe they're oversubscribed, they've too many subscriptions, but people are going to buy again and again. They're going to buy Netflix over and over just to have access, because the pain of canceling and the pain of signing up again is sometimes too high for people. And so they'll just rather keep their subscription going, especially if it's cheap. They're going to continue buying again and again. That's why Netflix is successful, right? Apple has the same thing. Apple has subscription on various services, and people come back every year to buy their iPhones. Not me. I only replace my phone when it's broken or when I really feel like it's slow or whatever. But usually people are going to buy the new thing because they love the product, right? And then higher value is you either raise your prices or you give them other things to buy on top of what they've already bought. So like I said, premium products, you step them up and you give them more things to buy, more expensive things to buy. To recap, I spoke about what makes a great ad campaign, right? You need a great offer. You need to test that offer with different rates. And how do you know if it's a good test? Well, you have these three things, right? You're selling at the right rate, your costs are low and your value is good, and you are selling to the right people. People love it and they buy again and again. And so once you have this, you go to scale and you find more customers, you give people more things to buy, they buy again and again, and we want to give them products that are of higher value, maybe more expensive, etc., etc. The mission here is to help you with your ads so that you can scale, so that you can grow your communities or grow your business, get more customers, make an impact, do something cool, do something good with your life, because business is all about that. Business is all about doing good work in the world. We love doing good work in the world because two things: it gives us meaning, it gives us something to do, it gives us fulfillment, and secondly is it helps other people. So if that's your goal and if that's your mission and that's why you're here, I welcome you.